Good afternoon, students. Today we will start a chapter that is the beginning of the modern age in Europe. Beginning of the modern age in Europe, so it may also be termed as Renaissance. Now, first of all, you should know Renaissance means rebirth. Renaissance means rebirth. So, what is the rebirth? Prior to that, you should know that in the medieval period, in the whole of Europe, the people's voice was totally dominated, and it was the church which were very much powerful. People did not have the liberty to ask any question, and the entire Christian world was dominated by the church. Whatever the church said, everybody has to obey it without any objection. No one can protest against the church. But this cannot continue for long. Later on, we will see that there were certain reformations and counter-reformation against the church. But today, we will discuss about the beginning of the modern age and what were the causes. So, at one point of time, people will definitely revolt. So, that came to be known as Renaissance. In this chapter, we will discuss about what were the causes of Renaissance and what is the meaning of Renaissance. It means rebirth or revival. So, I said, you might ask me a question, said, what rebirth took place? As I said, that in the medieval period in Europe, which was also termed as Dark Age, because people have no liberty to ask question, and all the things that was said by church, say for example, the church said it is the earth which is in the center and all the planets moves around the earth, but finally, or the sun moves around the earth. It is the earth which is in the center and the sun moves around it. But later on, it was proved that no, it is the sun which is at the center and all the other planets which revolve around the sun. So, in this type of things, whatever the church said, and you will also read that there were a lot of evil practices which were, or wrong practices, corrupt practices which were continued by the church. So, people protested against this church, and there was another group of people who came to be known as the Protestant. The Christian church continued with their corrupt policies. They became very rich. Their religious status was lost, and the people protested against them, which came to be known as the Protestant movement. So, Renaissance, as I said, it stands for a transitional movement. Transition means change in Europe between the medieval and the modern time, beginning in the 14th century in Italy and lasting till the 17th century. It influenced every field of human activity and stood for a humanistic revival of classical learning and knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome. Now, what is the meaning of humanistic learning? Humanistic learning means more emphasis will be given on human being. Previously, during this period, what was done? More emphasis was given on God. Everything depended upon, everything encircled around God, the church, all these things. But during this period, as a result of the Renaissance, more emphasis was given on the humanistic activity. For a humanistic revival of the classical learning and knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome, which led to the flowering of arts and literature, religion, philosophy, politics, as well as marked the beginning of the modern science. So, as I am repeating this again and again, no scientific inventions or discoveries were allowed. No explorations and discoveries were allowed. The explorers, the sailors, they dared to go to the sea to find some new places. So there was a total standstill. And the Renaissance was a period of vigorous artistic and intellectual activity. Now people were free to expose their intellects, and they started nurturing their intellectual activity. So that led to the flowering of different type of art and culture. You should know that the Renaissance first took in Italy. It was because Rome was the headquarters of the Pope, who became the patron of classical learning and literature. you should know who is the Pope. Pope stays in the Vatican City, and Pope is the head of the Christian community. So he lives in Rome. It was the headquarters of the Pope, who became the patron of classical learning and literature. Secondly, Italy's geographical location was very, very important, and it made the birthplace of Renaissance. Italy stood halfway between the Western Europe and the Middle East. So its strategic location was as such that it stood in between the Western Europe and the Middle East. The revival of trade between Europe and the East had brought great prosperity to the Italian city. So Italian cities were very, very much prosperous because of the trade which continued between Europe and East. And this trade was virtually, Italian cities controlled this trade. The Italian cities had grown up in an atmosphere of freedom from feudal control. Now you have come to another word, feudal. Feudalism is a system in which the land, the word feudalism has come from the word fief, F-I-E-F. Fief means land. And this land was given to the hierarchy. There was a hierarchy. Say the king, he was at the top. He used to give the land to the next level of officers, like the earls, the dukes, the barons, and in return they were provided a certain sense of security. But this feudal system was to some extent like our zamindari system. The Italian cities had grown up in an environment where the people had the permission, or they were allowed to think freely from the feudal control. Freedom encouraged. When you are free to think freely, and the original things will come out when you are free to think, and spirit of adventure beside the rulers of the Italian states promoted learning as well as art. So from the beforehand, the ruler of Italy's, the Italian rulers, they were patron of art and literature. So Renaissance got a very congenial atmosphere in Italy to develop. The spirit of Renaissance gradually spread to Germany, France, England, Scandinavia and Poland. So remember, Renaissance first took birth in Italy, and gradually it spread to other parts of Europe. Now I have just discussed what is Renaissance. Now let us discuss what were the causes of Renaissance. First is capture of Constantinople. Now, as you all know, that Constantinople was a great center of the Roman civilization and culture. It was captured by the Ottoman Turks, and the Ottoman Turks were not in favor of art and culture. In 1453, with it, the Byzantine Empire, that is the Eastern Roman Empire, came to an end. And the Turks were very harsh in their mind, and they were not so interested in art and literature. So they had no liberal outlook and no love for learning. Nor did they possess the tolerance of the Arabs. So they were not at all very much tolerant people. Therefore, the Greek scholars who were then living there, they started to flee from there. They went to the other European countries for patronage. Because let me tell you one thing, like Aurangzeb, he was a Muslim ruler, but it was during his time that he did not favor the art, literature, culture. So the people who were involved in all these activities, they left the kingdom of Aurangzeb, and they went to other places. So the fall of Constantinople, or the capture of Constantinople, was a boon in disguise. So these scholars, they left Constantinople, and most of them went to Italy, as they knew that Italy's love for learning. So the people went to Italy, and these scholars carried with them invaluable manuscripts. So they not only went there, but along with them they carried the important manuscripts and book, and inspired the people to study the classical literature. These scholars were men of liberal outlook, humanism and rational spirit. So wherever they went, they took knowledge with them, and they took the important responsibility of spreading knowledge and the progressive ideas. So thus you can see that the fall of Constantinople was a boon, or it proved as a blessing. Otherwise, if Constantinople would not have fallen in the hands of the Turks, they would not have fled from there, and and they would have destroyed it. But the scholars left that place and they moved to other parts of Europe, where they mainly they migrated to Italy. The spread of liberal ideal all over Europe marked the beginning of a new intellectual movement which came to be known as Renaissance. So today we will do up to this. Till then, all of you take care, and you must go through the video. Thank you.